Americans are deeply anxious after the Colonial Pipeline cyberattack halted the delivery of millions of gallons of fuel to several states and resulted in gasoline shortages at many stations across the country. People have already started to panic buy and hoard gallons of gasoline despite skyrocketing prices at the pump. The situation is being compared to the gas shortages seen in the 1970s, with drivers lining up their cars outside stations and even traveling to other states to fill up their tanks. Although Colonial announced in a statement that it is set to repair its system by the weekend, with each passing day, consumers are getting more alarmed with the prospect of facing further sharp price increases, and they've been fearing they could run out of supply indefinitely. From North Carolina to Florida and Alabama, shortages already being reported. Drivers are seeing pump restrictions and closed gas stations in numerous major cities. Just this morning, WJTV's Anna Farish reported widespread gasoline shortages in Mississippi. On Twitter, Alabama residents have exposed that gas stations started to place limits on fuel purchases, while ABC's Liz Cooper revealed that fuel is nowhere to be found in multiple locations of South Carolina. According to Bloomberg, Colonial Pipeline Company Chief Executive Officer Joseph Blount said the company would not resume fuel shipments until the ransomware had been entirely removed, and for the time being, it will manually operate segments of the pipeline until the system is restored. Just yesterday, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper signed an executive order declaring a state of emergency, temporarily lifting truck drivers' regulations, aiming to ensure adequate fuel supply throughout the state. However, according to WLOS's Caitlin Panther, the declaration might have arrived too late, as North Carolina is already facing acute gas shortages. On Sunday, the Department of Transportation declared a national state of emergency following Colonial shutdown, allowing tank truck drivers to work more overtime hours and dropping prior sleep time regulations. The U.S. DOT said that the exemption applies to transporting gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other refined petroleum products to Alabama, Arkansas, the District of Columbia, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia. While authorities have been trying to ease the transportation crunch, fuel costs have been on a meteoric rise. Even before the cyber attack closed the pipeline, U.S. gasoline supplies were compromised several times over the past 12 months. The Texas storms, the shipping container shortage, and a series of supply chain disruptions have helped to maintain gas prices at historical highs, nearing $3. And just last week, the national gas price average jumped another 7 cents, surpassing that figure and marking the highest price since November 2014. According to AAA, if this trend continues, we could see prices climbing even higher. The travel making a comeback after the health crisis and spring fuel costing more. So these were two factors already increasing our gas prices, and then we had the shortage that continues, the shortage of delivery drivers to be able to get to gas stations. AAA Western and Central New York communications specialist April Ingram explained. Ingram outlined the ransomware attack only aggravated the problems the industry has been experiencing, and it's gonna definitely impact our supply and gas prices across the nation, she said. The expert is urging people not to engage in panic buying of gas and focus on different ways to conserve fuel. Another specialist with the agency, AAA Mid-Atlantic Public and Government Affairs Manager Martha Mead, is warning drivers in Virginia not to hoard on gas since no one knows when the system will be back online. And the longer the shutdown lasts, the worse the impacts are. So make sure you have gas in your tank, but do not panic buy, Mead emphasized, because we know and we have seen with the health crisis, Panic buying can certainly cause a shortage that sometimes might not have been there in the past. But most drivers are getting nervous about the idea of having to go through prolonged periods of time without any fuel, particularly because even after the pipeline is back up and running again, it'll take 15 to 18 days to get fuel from Texas to New York, according to Meade. The head of global oil analytics at S&P Global Platts, Richard Joswick, argued that if the system isn't restored by Friday, and if the situation does drag on for longer than expected, it could be a huge problem for the entire country. Joswick added, "You'd wind up with price spikes and probably some service stations getting low on supply, and panic buying just makes it worse." Other experts are warning that if the pipeline is not up and running in the next 24 hours, we would see a 10, 20, or even 30% increase in gas prices. Already in some locations of the Southeast, and most notably on Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, the average price for a gallon of regular unleaded gasoline jumped from $2.69 last week to $3.02 per gallon today. According to local NBC reports, in Rochester, Minnesota, residents are also getting alarmed by the rapid price hikes. "I can't really recall the last time I spent $3 on a gallon of gas," Rochester resident Josh Solar exclaimed, saying that he's shocked every time he fills up. "I've seen it increase in the past 2 months from $2.69, then $2.79, and now $3 and some change. I think those prices are fluctuating too fast," Solar said. But the worst news comes from Northwest Florida, where gas stations owners were price gouging customers by selling regular gas for $4.29 per gallon. According to WEAR-TV's Renee Beninate, who exposed on Twitter that one station had sky-high gas prices, saying, "We've received calls into the WEAR-TV newsroom about this gas station in Escambia County selling regular gas for $4.29 a gallon. Within a minute of our newscast showing up, it was dropped to $3.29. And that wasn't the only one. Twitter users were reporting that amid fuel panic buying sprees, other stations in Florida were pushing prices up to $4.50 per gallon. The Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services says it's aware of these issues, and there may be other potential disruptions in normal fuel pricing and sales all over the state until this crisis is put under control. The Florida Agriculture Commissioner Nikki Fried shared a video update on social media asking residents not to panic buy gas, to hoard gas, or form long lines at gas stations, as fuel continues to move around our state. Moreover, the latest AAA statement forecasts gas prices will continue to soar if drivers don't stop running to the pumps. Areas including Mississippi, Tennessee, and the East Coast from Georgia into Delaware are most likely to experience limited fuel availability and price increases as early as this week, said Jeanette McGee, a spokesperson. Meanwhile, given the escalating gas crisis and growing fears that the pipeline shutdown could linger for much longer than expected, the U.S. government is now investigating the possibility of a state-linked hack, and all interagencies are keeping a close eye on the Kremlin after a new hacker group called Dark Side was uncovered by officials on Monday. A criminal group originating from Russia named Dark Side is believed to be responsible for a ransomware cyber attack on the Colonial Pipeline, according to a former senior cyber official. Although Russian hackers often freelance for the Kremlin, early indications suggest that this was a criminal scheme, not an attack by a nation-state, the official revealed. The group released its own statement, hinting that one of its members may have been behind the attack, but the Dark Side group never intended to spark such chaos, further describing itself as apolitical. In the statement, the group said, "We do not participate in geopolitics, do not need to tie us with a defined government and look for our motives. Our goal is to make money and not create problems for society. Ransomware groups like DarkSide offer to sell their malware to others in what's known as a ransomware as a service, according to the cybersecurity firm Cybereason. However, several cybersecurity experts are arguing that the distinction between DarkSide and affiliates doesn't shift blame. That's what Rob Lee, the chief executive officer of the industrial security firm Dragos, has said, adding that whether they passed off the keyboard or not, they're responsible either way. He mentioned that the group will probably avoid targets that draw federal law enforcement attention in the future, but that most ransomware attacks have significant implications for society. The hackers are known amongst cybersecurity experts as a Russian-speaking group that popped up last summer, according to Dmitry Alperovich, the chairman of Silverado Policy Accelerator and former chief technology officer of the cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike Holdings, Inc. Like many Russian cybercrime operations, they specifically exclude Russian companies from being targeted by their malware, he underscored in a statement. The attackers stole roughly 100 gigabytes of data from Colonial Pipeline's networks in less than 2 hours on Thursday. Then, they locked the company's computers with ransomware and demanded payment. Cybereason claimed in a recent note that DarkSide has a perverse desire to appear ethical by publishing its own code of conduct for its customers, exposing who and what targets are acceptable to attack. Amongst the protected organizations are hospitals, hospices, schools, universities, non-profit organizations, and government agencies. But all entities protected are based in former Soviet countries. Their rules do not apply to companies in English-speaking countries. Cybereason also found that the group is extremely skilled and has already released confidential data on more than 40 victims on its website called DarkSide Leaks, which is modeled on WikiLeaks. Therefore, they conduct a double extortion, meaning that the attackers not only encrypt and block the victim's data, but they also steal it and threaten to publish it on the DarkSide Leaks site if companies don't pay the ransom. Ransom demands range from $200,000 to $20 million. And Cybereason unveiled that the hackers gathered detailed information on their victims, studying the size and scope of the company, as well as who the key decision makers are inside the firm. And the group continues to expand. They've recently launched the latest version of their malware, DarkSide 2.0. In face of the upheaval caused by the group, Senator Angus King and Representative Mike Gallagher, who are co-chairs of the Cyberspace Solarium Commission, stated that the Colonial Pipeline attack highlights the need for more robust cybersecurity measures. They said, "We are disappointed, though unsurprised, to learn of the cyber attack that has shut down 5,500 miles of pipeline. This interruption of the distribution of refined gasoline and jet fuel underscores the vulnerability of our national critical infrastructure in cyberspace and the need for effective cybersecurity defenses. Just as during the Texas freeze and other global supply chain issues, one single disruption was all it took to trigger a major systemic failure all across the country, the U.S. needs to urgently focus on strengthening its supply chains and critical infrastructures, because consumers have been the ones paying for the problems resulting from our leaders' inability to properly assess and mitigate our crises. Americans are about to see a hyperinflationary spike like no other as commodity prices are on the rise. We're witnessing 70s-like gas shortages and widespread scarcity of several goods, while prices never cease to soar. We should all prepare for the worst, given that the panic buying frenzy just started yesterday, and it has already distressed supplies to the point of sparking acute gas shortages. Tomorrow, things won't be any better. So pay close attention to how these events roll out, because very dark times are approaching. Thank you for watching.